are you? It's me, Lauren B. Welcome to the Untitled Tarot. I don't anticipate being on for very long. I'm sure most of you that watch this will watch this in the replay later. But I just wanted to come on and just talk about the collective energies for a little bit. Just to give you guys a little bit of a bearing of what's going on. I know the collective energy has been beyond difficult. All of the retrogrades, the collective shadow, stuff you guys have been going through, it's been a really difficult time. I'm not gonna mince words and pretend that it hasn't been a complete and utter energy shitstorm. And if anything, it feels like it's getting worse. It's really one of those like darkest before the dawn like type of energies. Hold on a second. How's that? Is that better? It's a little bit lighter. It's a little bit brighter. Not perfect. Here, is this good? Yeah, you can exist there. That's fine. So like I said, the energy's been really tough. The collective energy has just been intense, and a lot of you guys are struggling with it. I actually did a energy working for the full moon. That should be posted in about a half hour from now, so 3:30 Eastern Standard Time today. The energy working that I did today was a warfare working. It's the full moon. It's the hunter's moon in Aries. Aries is ruled by Mars. Mars is a planet of war. Considering everything that is going on, I thought a warfare energy working would benefit you guys the most. But the collective shadow has been out of control. And I know that, you know, with Mercury retrograde, it's all about things from the past, old people, old wounds, old traumas, like old lessons, like needing to kind of go back, slow down, reflect upon them. But it feels as though this go around has been so much more intense. It's been so much more painful. And a lot of you guys are a little bit confused as to why that is and why that's happening, which is why we're going to hang out for just a little bit. Again, I don't anticipate this live being super long. Just to kind of break through and break down kind of what is happening. What's happening. I feel as though I almost like didn't want to do like this live stream, but I feel as though it's necessary for you guys to have as much information as you possibly can, right? Let's see who's in here. Hi, Amy. Hi, Preaches. So, as we know, we're all going through shadow work. The collective shadow's been out of control, and I've been posting a lot about the power of the shadow and how the shadow is your friend, right? Three of Swords keeps wanting to come out in reverse. How the shadow is your friend. It's supposed to be your friend. You don't do all of this shadow work just to have your shadow not work for you. So a lot of you guys have been falling into this energy of almost feeling like an alarm system is going off, or you feel really kind of anxious or on guard or even angry. Like there's a lot of anger that everyone is dealing with. And part of that is your shadow, the collective shadow, is on alert. Because what's happening is in these current times, we're doing a lot of quantum jumping, we're doing a lot of timeline leaping. And what does that really mean in its essence? It's talking about the butterfly effect. That every time you make a decision that you want better, every time you decide that you don't want to settle, every time you invest in yourself, every time you go in and you do the necessary healing work, you make that decision. And thus the ripple effect of possibilities, of options, of blessings, a whole new realm of it opens up to you. And with every new level comes a new devil. And so with all of this jumping, with all of this new butterfly effect coming in, it's obviously going to stir up some shit in the ethers, right? Because the universe is full of light and dark energies, right? Dark is not always evil and bad, but light is not always, you know, breezy and good either. And so it really kind of, it's kicking up a lot of stuff. And part of what it's kicking up is that a lot of the shadow work that you are doing right now, a lot of the difficulty that you are facing has to do with your past lives. Now, you don't have to know what you were doing and who you were in all of your past lives. You just don't. It's not, sometimes it's better if you don't know. But the basis of the information is that as you are doing all of this work, the reason why it feels like so much more, the reason why it feels so heavy, the reason why it feels extra difficult lately is because you are also doing the shadow work from your past lives. And with that, in order to receive the blessings, right? We talk about ancestral abundance all of the time, right? That in which your family paid into, sowed into, worked towards, and they were not able to reap during their lifetimes. Well, you have done that as well throughout all of the lifetimes that you have lived. You have also reaped, right? You have also sown into things, you have worked, and you were not able to access all of that abundance in your life. With that, you also incurred a certain amount of karma. You incurred a certain amount of trauma. You went through a lot of things that you also were not able to process in those lifetimes. And so a lot of what's happening right now with the heaviness, with the difficulty, is that a lot of this past life anger, sacred rage, a lot of this past life opposition energy is all coming up now. This past life shadow is being added on top of whatever it is you're doing now, because a lot of you are confused. You're going, I did a lot of my shadow work, like I did a lot of healing, like I shouldn't be struggling this bad. And the reason is because you're basically working through the backlog of information, because what you're doing is part of your generational healing and all of that stuff is you're healing your past lives right now at a new level, which means that you have a backlog of trauma and difficulty, a backlog of opponents as well. That's important to note as well, because we have soul contracts. We go through different things in different lifetimes, right? But you also have natural opponents which will appear on your path. And so if by some reason something happened in one of your past lives and you had an untimely exit, well, that means that those battles that you had to face in those past lives, you didn't get to hit the field. And so you're hitting the field now. And it is like, I feel it like in my body, like I feel this anxiety, and it's like I feel that tightness in my chest because I'm so tapped into the collective energy. And when I'm done doing this video, I'm going to make sure that I'm wiping off all of the collective energy. It is a lot though. And so again, you've done a lot of work. I want to acknowledge that you've done a lot of work. You've done a lot of healing. And so if you feel frustrated that it shouldn't be this hard for me to work through the energy, you're right. And I sympathize and I empathize and I'm right there with you. But it's important to remember that what you're really working through is all of the stuff that did not get resolved in the other lives that you've led. So for me personally, I had done a meditation probably about a week ago, and I was being taken through the origin of my family's magic, right? And so what it had done is it had brought me through all of the previous generations of my family on both sides, leading back to my first incarnation within my bloodline, because not every incarnation that I've had has been within the bloodline that I'm in now, but a significant portion of them has. And so I had to go all the way back to the beginning of like my family's magic. And what I saw there was a lot of soul fragment. And so we don't talk about soul fragment so much over here. Some energy workers do, but a soul fragment is basically when you go through something that is very traumatic, or it's very painful, or it's nearly impossible to process. And so what happens is that there is a fracture of your energy that kind of splits off, right? Think about it like Harry Potter. Think about it like Voldemort and the Horcruxes, but they're unintentional. It's through this big expansion of pain, and these pieces of you kind of get spread out throughout different lifetimes. And as you are working towards wholeness, as you're working towards totality, as you're working towards bringing your light and your dark, working towards bringing in the fullness of your magic, the fullness of your faith, what's happening is in order to do that, to move to the next level, because again, with these butterfly effects, with these quantum jumps, with these timeline hops, the level that we are trying to get to is really freaking high, and that is amazing. But in order to get up there, we need all of our parts. We need all of our strength. We need a deeper level of healing. We need more of our magic. And so what does that mean? We have to go and get it. So you've been pulling in these soul fragments that have gotten fractioned off throughout a variety of your past lives. But in order to retrieve, it's like a video game. It's like in order to retrieve these fragments, you have to break through the shadow that was created, that trauma that was created, that situation that happened to you while Mercury. You have to break through all of that stuff that caused the fragment to begin with. Does that make sense? In order to get the little piece of magic, the little bag of gold from one of your past lives. You have to work through all of that shadow, the reason you got fragmented to begin with. And then when you get that, then you go through the process of having to integrate it and ground it into your now reality. And then you go back and you do another piece, and you go back and do another piece, and you go back and back and back until you end up at the starting point, likely of all of your reincarnations within your current bloodline. Again, not all of your reincarnations are within the same bloodline, but the last huge chunk of them probably are within the bloodline that you have. Now, as you're doing this, you're also doing levels of ancestral healing on top of it, which again, time is fluid, moves forward and helps the future generations coming. I know you guys have been feeling that fertility energy. I know you've been seeing these pandemic babies. You're probably having a lot of dreams that you might be pregnant or something's happening or there's just babies in your dream. It's because there is like a cachet of new souls, new spirits that want to come down, but they cannot come down until all of this other stuff is cleared out, right? They want to come in smooth, flowing, beautiful, abundant, new ancestral energy, which is why we're doing all of this added level of ancestral energy as you're also trying to pull back your soul fragments, you know what I mean? Do this soul retrieval and do all of this past life shadow work at the same time, which is why I say, yes, we have been, the retrogrades in March that we had were not as difficult as the retrogrades we're going through now. They just weren't, right? Because you did the work. You've worked on your shadow. You've integrated it. You're working with your shadow now as a friend. You're sitting in, this net neutral territory between your light and your dark. You're able to look at your behavioral patterns, your triggers. You're able to decide to react and respond to them differently than you used to, which is causing that butterfly effect. So in a way, it can be frustrating because you're like, I'm doing all the work. I'm doing all the right things. I'm changing my responses. Like I should be seeing a positive outcome, right? And instead I'm being thrown with more shit. Like this doesn't feel right. And I totally get it. But the thing is that we have to remember that the universe is comprised of equal and opposite energy. And as I like to say, typically you deal with the opposite energy before you deal with one that is equal to your resonance. So even though you are doing good work and you are making all of these really good choices, what it has done has put you in a totally different caliber of breakthrough, of blessings, of healing, of new opportunities and realities making their way possible and physically manifest for you. But in order to access them, you also need a higher level of your magic. You need more of your pieces. You need a deeper sense of wholeness, which requires you to go back and retrieve these soul fragments and heal the shadow of your past life, which in turn heals that ancestral line behind you and in front of you. But that is part of the reason, like I said, the Three of Swords in reverse, it keeps wanting to fly out of the deck. It's this deeper level of healing. When the Three of Swords is in reverse, it's old heartbreak. It's old disappointment. That's why it's been so difficult for you lately. That's why it's been so difficult for me lately. And I'm not totally paying attention to the chat, but I did see a few of you say, like, I feel like I've been going crazy. And honestly, me too. Like, I have been feeling like I've been taking crazy pills, but I'm not, right? And for someone like me that I do grid work, I'm in the astral every day, like I'm out here in these streets, and it's been really difficult for me. And so even though there's a part of me that's like, I don't necessarily like want to do a video about this, if it's something that like I'm struggling with, right, then I know it has to be something that you're struggling with. And as you are going through it and I'm going through it, that means everyone else is going through it and they might not be realizing it either. And so again, it's not just your shadow and your soul retrieval from your past life, it's everybody's. And as we know, collective energy is like the sea. Everyone's feelings, everyone's shadow, everyone's everything just percolating up here like molecules. And then it comes down into the physical manifest, right, as the collective field, which is why everything feels so heavy and it feels so difficult and it's like nothing is working, right? And that's why I said at the beginning, it really is one of those darkest before the dawn. And I know it's hard. A lot of you got just like a little sliver of faith left in you. And I understand how frustrated it is. And a lot of you may have been noticing, and I was talking to Sacred and Salty about this, about how you might feel as though you're being given a bit of a break by your spirit team. Some of you guys might be just freaking out, getting angry, lashing out, screaming at the moon, you know what I mean? Just screaming into the void I have been screaming into the void. And my team's been really nice about it. Like, they've been cutting me a lot of slack because they understand how difficult it is for us right now. And there have been so many moments for me in the last 2 weeks, especially, where I've been like, I don't mean to get so upset. Like, I don't mean to be difficult. I don't mean to be losing my balance or my composure, but these are really difficult times spiritually. They are. Right? And they recognize that, and we're grateful that they recognize that, because it is difficult. But I just want you to know that you're not crazy, you're not doing anything wrong. It's not your fault that the energy is so difficult. It's not your fault that the collective shadow is huge and thick and it's heavy. It's not your fault, but it is it's my responsibility to let you know at least how I'm perceiving. When any reader, when anyone gets on the internet and says anything, you have to remember that I speak a spiritual truth based out of my own gnosis and my own lived experience, but I also don't speak in absolute truths. No one has the ability to speak in absolute truths. And so if this doesn't resonate for you, if this doesn't click, then that is absolutely fine. So again, sit on this word, like meditate on it, see if it resonates for you. I don't always speak the gospel truth. I can only speak out of my own perception and my lived experience, but this is what I've been able to pull in. And I see a couple of you talking about dreams, and yes, the dreams have been crazy vivid. And a lot of what's happening is a lot of this karma is being played out. A lot of this healing is being played out. You're being desensitized to a lot of these triggers. A lot of you guys might have felt as though you're being triggered a lot lately by things that weren't triggering you 6 weeks ago, 6 months ago, that you already worked through. It's because there's a deeper cord there that's connected to some of this stuff, and you don't realize how sensitive your energy is, right? It's I've been getting the download about glass. Glass is a vessel, right? We pour things in it, we make them into bowls, like, right? But glass is transparent, and glass is also incredibly fragile. And so while I and you and a lot of us may feel as though you are ready to move to the next level, you are ready for promotion, you are ready for a breakthrough, you are ready to move to the next chapter, even though it may be very apparent to the divine, it's very apparent to your spirit team, it may not always be as apparent to us, right? How fragile and how vulnerable we are as a collective right now, how vulnerable your energy is right now, that a lot of us are walking around like a raw open nerve, which is why it's like you wake up and you're good, and next thing you know, you're like, oh, I'm annoyed and I feel this energy, and there is this need to push back on it. And if you need a minute, acknowledge your emotions, because your emotions will leave, they will flow through you, and they will transmute to something lighter and more productive and that feel better for you if you just acknowledge that you feel like shit, that you feel angry, that you feel like things aren't fair. Just acknowledge it, feel it, hold it, and then let it go. If you avoid what you resist, persists. So if you ignore these emotions, they're gonna fester in this little collective stew. So do yourself a favor, and if you're mad, let yourself be mad. If you wanna howl at the moon, you go on and you howl at the moon, because you're gonna feel better and you're gonna move up to that higher vibration. But this is also how we anchor in energy. So a lot of you guys, you'll feel really high vibe and anything's possible. And then a couple hours, the next day, a few days later, you're going to feel like you're swimming in shit again, and you're not going to understand. You go from all the way up here back down to here. But that is how you anchor in collective high vibrational energy. Is first you have to meet and feel that energy, and then you come back down, which you see as a backslide, but it's not. It's you pulling that high vibrational energy in and anchoring it into the physical reality. So the next time that you move up, you get another upswing, a high vibe energy, what you're doing is you're pulling up that foundational layer that you have. You're pulling up that anchor to the next level. And then you'll go up, and then you'll sink back down, and you'll go, what the hell is wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? Nothing. You're anchoring in that high vibrational energy into the physical, which is dense, so that the next time you go up, you're pulling that level up too. That's how we anchor energy and see, again, the butterfly effect play out, physically manifest in your life. That's how it works. I'm going to check this chat real quick. Wild Wolf, hello. Makes sense. Hi, Sherry. Just said this morning. God said, let you. Good. Absolutely work on you. It's been through the roof. That's why you're drinking wine. It's so funny. I've been feeling this energy could be past life, but I haven't been able to trace it down into this life, if that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely makes sense. That's where I lost myself in the back, and it came back together. Yep. It reminds me of that Beatles song, Come Together, Over Me. I swallowed a corner of a white tissue. I'm not sure what that means. That's interesting. Hi, Garrett. This makes you feel so much better. It makes sense. You're screaming a lot, too. That's all right. That's sacred rage. You gotta let it out. You gotta let it out. Calling them to come closer, to calm me, but I do yell first. Yeah, I did the same thing last 2 days. Hours later, I lost it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear that. They aren't so bad for me now. No, that's good. No, that's a good thing. I just feel it collectively, right? I feel this kind of collective density. And again, it's why there's like this uptick in spiritual warfare. And I did the hour-long workshop on spiritual warfare over on the Patreon last week. And that's a lot of what's happening is when you move to new levels, that level's going to be opposed, right? And some of it is just, again, equal and opposite energies of the universe. But again, there are a lot of spirits, there are a lot of energies, there are a lot of things that exist in the ethers that do not have your best interests at heart, that are not your friend, that they do not want to see you YOLO. They really don't. And you have to be mindful of that. And so a lot of what is happening too is that you guys may be, or you may have been, kind of guided to reorient your spirit team. There may be certain spirits, there may be certain deities, there may be certain guides or ascended masters that you work with in the past that all of a sudden you just felt as though you fell out of resonance. That's okay. That's probably a good thing, right? But you learned your lessons from them, you got what you could, and now kind of you're moving on. Now is really not a time to resist change. Now is a time to stay as neutral as you possibly can. And part of this energy of staying as neutral as possible is because so many of the energies around are very combatant. So even if you aren't personally dealing with a lot of that difficulty, you may come across certain people that are, right, that are working through this past life retrieval, working through a lot of this past life shadow and density, so that way they can continue to kind of move on up. A lot of you guys might be fine, but I do sense that a lot of you guys are struggling with it. It's something that I've been having to work through as well, and it also depends what happened to you in your past life. It depends what happened to you in this life. Different things that are coming up for you to heal and kind of work through, right? It really depends. All of our paths are different. All of our experiences are different. All of us handle difficulty differently, right? And so now is also a really good time to show yourself love, to show yourself compassion, where you can. It's difficult. It's also a good time to try and do that for other people as well, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's just kind of more the Empress in reverse, the Eight of Swords in reverse. There's a frustration around not receiving, right? Things not coming in, manifestation. It's just that, wait. You just have to keep waiting for it. You have to keep waiting for it. And just that frustration of, why do I have to keep waiting for it? Like, why are things taking so long? Like, I don't really understand. And I totally get that. And I have felt some of that frustration myself. But it's important to remember, as I was talking about a lot of these, these pandemic babies, like these new souls that are wanting to come in, and they want to come in with kind of like a clean energetic slate. That also includes like project babies, you know what I mean? Business babies. It's just fertility. It's new life, that these things also want to come into the physical in a new energy field with a new energetic slate. And so a lot of this stuff has to get cleared out beforehand. And again, it doesn't feel fair, but it is fair in the sense that you don't want to have your big come up or your breakthrough or your blessing come in a moment where it's like the universe is throwing hands at each other. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense for you. Your DNA contains your Akashic records. When you speak to your DNA, you will invoke the key maker, filter out the old, and call in the fourth. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, absolutely, you can do that. A lot of dirt from patriarchy. Shadow is insane. Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of like societal structures, that very much of that hierophantic energy, right? a lot of what's happening is people think like down with the patriarchy, like the new earth is coming, but the thing is that it's a process, and a lot of people talk about that in a very fatalistic way, like just bring down all the structures, we'll rebuild. But in order for that to actually happen, that would cause a lot of chaos, a lot of pain in people's lives. People would die if we just had these systems of capitalism and patriarchy just come crashing down to the ground. People would literally starve to death. Do you know how expensive healthcare is in America to begin with? And I personally, from my conversation with God doesn't want that for society to be thrown into chaos. There still needs to be some kind of order. There needs to be some kind of social safety net for people. And so the thing is as societal governmental institutions are evolving, they need to be evolved from the inside out. So to evolve them, you have to involve yourself in them, right? I see a lot of people talking about, and it's just honestly, it's the time of the season for the fatalists. It's time of season for the nihilists, which is why it's really important for God's people to be out here, even though it's really difficult to go out there and shine your light and let your shadow kick a little ass if need be, right? But it's important that we don't just talk about tearing down capitalism and tearing down the patriarchy without also offering new solutions for what we would put in its place, right? I see a lot of people talking about burn the patriarchy, but I don't see a lot of people running for office. I see a lot of people complaining about school systems, but I don't see a lot of people involving themselves in the student board. Does that make sense? And so as we say, as on every coffee mug, you have to be the change that you want to see in the world, right? So when I'm tired and I'm working through my shadow and I'm doing, grid work in the background, screaming into the void and then picking up my sword and shield and running into the astral to like get shit done, even though I'm tired and I'm cranky and I'm frustrated too, that's what I gotta do, right? I gotta empty up that cup. I gotta empty the vessel so God can fill me up with what I need, with what I've been praying for, what I've been hoping for, what was promised to me, right? And so the same thing goes for you guys. It's this emptying of the vessel, right? And that's part of this purge. That's part of why this particular full moon in Aries is so intense. That's part of the reason why this healing, while this shadow work, all of this energy that you're working through is so intense right now, right? It's part of this slipstream. And what is a slipstream? A slipstream is when you push through all of the resistance, so that way what comes after it can move forward much quicker, much smoother, much more effectively, and get ahead, go way farther than it would have if that resistance hadn't been pushed through. So a lot of what you're experiencing right now is the slipstream effect, spiritually speaking, right? And so also when we talk about the patriarchy, we're also talking about our own internalized patriarchy, your own masculine energies, male or female or non-binary. You all have a divine masculine energy within you, your own hierophant that you are also trying to restructure from the ground up without completely tearing it down. Because if you completely tore it down, you wouldn't get anything done. And we still need to get stuff done, right? You've been listening to shamanic drum music. False starts over and over again. This is the thing about false starts, though, is false starts aren't ever really false starts. And I know the frustration of this is what it is each time it's preparing you. Each time you're learning a lesson. Each time you're learning how to grow things, right? If you've been watching any of the weekly readings, what has been coming up is the 3 little pigs, right? And how one brother built with sticks and one brother built with hay and one brother built with bricks. And what's been coming through to me is that we are all the 3 brothers, right? 3 is a very divine number of the 3 little pigs. And so every time you think you have a false start or you think you have a false breakthrough, what's happening is you're learning how to build that house. So when the wind comes, when the big bad wolf comes, it doesn't get blown away because you're learning how to build at deeper levels. You're learning how to build in more of a foundational, longevity driven way, right? And so every time you have a false start, it's not really a false start. The things that you learned in that false start you cannot buy them. They can only be earned through lived experience, and that's something to actually celebrate and commend yourself for. And the fact that you get up and you try again speaks a lot to your character, your integrity, and your tenacity as an individual and as a soul here trying to do this thing called life. Right? So you should take that moment and really celebrate yourself and whatever is taken away from you will always be replaced with something that is better. It might not be instantaneous, but God always replaces whatever is taken from you with something better. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So I think that's all I have for you guys. I didn't want to be on here for a long time. I just wanted to come on and kind of explain a little bit of the collective energy right now and kind of what's happening a little bit behind the scenes. In case you were dealing with some of this difficulty, if again you were like, I don't know why I'm struggling so much with the energy right now because I thought I did a lot of work. You did. But what you're also doing is you're retrieving these aspects of your soul that got fragmented off in past lives, because the levels that you're moving to now are going to require all of your strength. They're going to require all of your magic. They're going to require like all of you, your whole entire soul, not just a piece of it, all of it. And so you got to go back and you got to get those pieces. And to get those pieces, you got to work through that shadow, and that's why it's so hard, right? So have grace for yourself, have compassion for yourself, have extra grace and compassion and kindness for other people too, because again, whether they recognize it or whether they don't, everyone's going through this level, at this energy at some level. So for some of you, it's going to be more intense. For some of you, it's going to be a walk in the park. And for those of you that it's a walk in the park, make sure to hold a little extra space if you have it for those that are having a lot more difficulty. And for those that you are going through a lot of difficulty right now, just remember that God always comes through. And sometimes the reason things are so heavy is because you need to be strong enough to bear the weight of your blessing, because maybe your blessing is heavy. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So I love you. Be nice to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Enjoy your full moon. Go make your moon water. Go take your spiritual bath. Go get your freak on. Go do whatever it is that you do on a full moon. Go howl at the moon. Enjoy yourself. Get some extra rest. I know sleep is not coming easy. Go and get as much rest as you can. Drink your water. Say your prayers. Be a good noodle, and I will see you later. Goodbye.